Folks, I want to talk about misinformation and disinformation. I have said for years that we live in times of outrage, and I want to update that. I want to say instead that we live in times of chaos and disruption and polarization. And sure, outrage is part of that, but I think that the times they have changed a little bit, and misinformation and disinformation are core to what we're experiencing right now. They increase the polarization, they increase the chaos, and for sure, they are disruptive in the space to governance, to democracy, to our straight up relationships with each other. Now, for years, I've taught people what to do with disinformation and misinformation. Things like share information through trusted networks or ambassadors. Don't take facts head on. Let some of it go by and then clarify the things that are most important. Get a little creative, put a human face on things, look at storytelling. I think all those things are probably still important, but I also think that they're not working. So the disruptors on the disinformation and the misinformation side, they are winning. That it is everywhere and it divides us, and that divide is getting so big. So what do we do? I think we need to do something different. And so I want to start first with the premise that arguing facts does not work. It doesn't. It creates this psychological response called the backfire effect. So, when I tell you that the things that you believe that are core to your identity and your values are wrong, you dig in and you get stuck and you get more committed to those ideas and those facts. And so it actually just backfires, right? We can't educate or explain people out of the information that they're attached to because it's tied to who they are. So there's got to be some things we can do instead. So here's some additional things we can do besides those strategies that we've tried so far. Number one, I think it's important you decide if you're going to engage at all. Right? What is this moment calling for from you? What are your beliefs, your values, your identity? How is it impacted by the misinformation or the disinformation? What are the consequences of engaging or not engaging? And I say that because there is so much of it out there on every issue and every community and every organization. So pick where you're going to step in because otherwise you will be exhausted and overwhelmed really fast. Number two, gather your courage. Desmond Tutu once said, and I'm not going to get this quote exactly right, but something like, we can't be silent. That if you're neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. So, on some misinformation, which is a mistake, disinformation is intended to cause harm. And so, where disinformation is swirling and it's causing harm, I think we need to step in and we need to gather our courage and prepare ourselves in order to do that. We also probably need to weigh the risks and the consequences to our physical safety and our emotional safety. And how sad is it to be in a time of chaos and disruption that I have to encourage you to weigh the risks in standing up for what's true and what's right. Number three, invite a conversation with curiosity and with complexity. So, number one, if you are sure that you are right and the other person is wrong, this is probably not a good approach to take because you're just going to trigger the backfire effect and then things will be more polarized. So, instead, think about how do people change their minds? Well, people change their minds through a combination of conversation and experience. So that means taking the time, the effort, the energy to understand where they're coming from, what values they hold, how that connects to their identity, sharing the same for you, building collective understanding, and planting the seeds of trust and building relationship and connection. And then really digging into the issue. So that takes time, it takes effort, it takes energy, and it also takes a willingness on the other side to be in conversation. So it's not always a strategy that's possible, but it is a transformative strategy when those conditions exist and when the time and the effort is possible. Number four, build capacity for everyone involved. Well, really, in any kind of conversation to question, to rethink, to let go of assumptions. So let's ask questions and let's make this just commonplace in the way we engage. Like, is this opinion or is it fact? Is there evidence from a reputable source? Well, what's the source of the information and do you trust that source? And is there more to this story that will help me understand the nuances and the complexity of it? Have I got some biases or assumptions I'm bringing? Or maybe the person who's sharing the information, have they got some biases or assumption? Is the story playing on my own emotions and manipulating how I might see the situation? So, like, let's just build our capacity to have informed conversations. Number five, take a stand, because I think the foundation of leadership is that you know what you stand for and then you stand up for it. So prepare yourself to take on misinformation and disinformation. And I think that that's of course gathering your courage, but it's also about being willing to say what you know, what you don't know, and what you want to know. And you can say with deep certainty and ground yourself, here's what I know for sure. Here are the facts and the evidence that backs up these facts. And then you can say, here's what I want to know. And here's what I'm curious about. I know that this is a complex situation and there's lots of facts and information for me to weigh in order to decide or to understand things. And so here's what I need to know. And can you share your experiences and your sources of information? And so that I can understand it fully. But start with, here's what I know for sure. Number six, make sure I have the right number of fingers out. Number six, and this is the last one, said at the beginning that we live in a time of chaos, polarization, and disruption. Now, here's one thing I know for sure: the disruptors are winning. They are way, way out in front on this information and misinformation and disinformation. And so I think we got to disrupt ourselves. We need to disrupt the disruptors. We need to turn the tide and change the momentum. And so, like, maybe a place to start is to have a bad ideas brainstorm. Like, what are all the really bad ideas that would disrupt what we're experiencing? Because the status quo and being gentle and kind and slow isn't working. So, what else could we do? Can we use AI to amplify facts and the good information? Because AI is amplifying disinformation right now. Can we come up with a jingle and a tune that plays, every time, like it's like the Jeopardy jingle, right? Do, 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 do. You can tell I can't sing. That plays every time, we hear misinformation or disinformation. Can we put fact checkers on every site? Can we make use of celebrity culture and get those celebrities out there to say, well, hey, here's the facts on this issue, because people pay attention to that sensationalism and that celebrity culture that we live in. Can't we come up with games and online games and board games so people can test, two truths and one lie? Can we play fact bingo? Like, I think we need to get really creative about how we disrupt the situation that we're in. The old ways of working are not serving us. And so, in order to take this on and turn the tide, because misinformation and disinformation is one of the greatest risks facing humanity right now. And that's not just me saying that, that's the World Economic Forum listing that as one of the greatest risks facing humanity in the next 2 years and the next 10 years. And so, let's disrupt the disruptors. Let's do something really different with this. So if you want to join me for a bad ideas brainstorm, shoot me a note. I'm going to plan to hold one and maybe produce a report of all the bad, disruptive, out of the box, creative, unorthodox ideas we come up with so you can try them out. I think this is not easy or simple, but it's possible. And when we put all our minds together, I think we can do pretty great things. Thanks for listening.